Hi everyone, my name is Kaylee. I'm sure you'll be very surprised to find out how old I am. What do you think? I bet you guessed wrong. I might look like a 50-year-old woman, but in fact, I'm only 15 years old. That's right, I said 15. What's even weirder is that when I was born, I looked like an 80-year-old. I look this way now because I'm getting younger every year. And it's not just my looks, my health is also like that of an older person. Just like my appearance, my internal organs are old too. But thankfully, they are also getting a little younger day by day. The reason for this is that I have a very rare genetic disorder. They say that only 1 in 20 million people have it. Since the world population is roughly 8 billion, there are at most 400 people who have this condition. However, many people with this condition die young because it comes with many health risks. Like I said earlier, it's not just how we look. Our organs are older too. We are struggling with diseases that people usually develop when they get older. This is why, according to scientists, my making it to age 15 is nothing short of a miracle. And the credit for this goes to my parents, who are both doctors. I managed to survive this long thanks to their hard work and advancements in medicine. I think that my life story, which I'm about to share with you, is quite inspiring on many levels. As I just mentioned, both my parents were doctors. They actually started dating when they were in college. But since med school takes a long time, they weren't in a rush to get married. They decided to have a child when they were older because they were so busy with their work. My mom had a normal, full-term pregnancy despite being older. She didn't encounter any problems, that is, until I was born. When everyone saw me, they were shocked because I looked like an 80-year-old. My skin was all wrinkly. I had a couple of white hairs on my head and 2 teeth that were decayed. Since my voice was very deep, I sounded like an old person when I cried. Instead of screaming and crying like a baby, I was moaning the way old people usually do. Tests showed that my internal organs were also worn out, just like my appearance. My heart wasn't very strong. My bones were too weak. My lungs, kidneys, liver, and all my inner organs were in really bad shape, as if they'd been used for many years. Since this was such a rare disorder, at first they couldn't figure out the reason for it. After doing intensive research, my parents learned that this was a genetic disorder, and unfortunately, there was no treatment for it. They still had lengthy conversations with experts on the subject. As a result of those conversations, they understood that the only cure for it was time. According to the doctors, there was a high probability that I would develop diabetes, hypertension, or cancer, diseases that are common among older people. However, if I could manage to stay alive, I'd go through a reverse aging process. What does reverse aging mean? Normally, people get a little older with each passing day, but the opposite would happen to me. I'd be getting younger every day. Finding out about this gave my parents hope. They would do their best to keep me alive as long as possible and allow me to get younger this way. And luckily, they've been able to do this successfully up until now. As you may have guessed, I had a very difficult childhood. I don't just mean all the health issues I had to deal with. I got used to them with time. What really upset me was other kids staying away from me. There are a lot of things I can't forget. For example, there was the time my mom and I went to the mall. I was only 5 years old then, but I looked like someone who was 70. My mom took me to the children's play area at the mall. There was a ball pit with 2 girls in it. They were throwing balls, having fun. At first, they didn't notice me, so I climbed inside, picked up a ball, and threw it their way. When they finally saw me, they suddenly screamed and left the ball pit crying. I was so young, I couldn't possibly understand why I scared them away. Of course, now I don't blame them. Imagine this. I was their height, I acted just like them, but I looked like their grandmother. It was so normal to be scared of someone like that. But since I didn't know about my condition, it upset me so much that all the kids were running away from me, and I didn't have any friends because of the way I looked. As I was getting older, I was starting to look younger, but I still looked like a 60-year-old woman when I was 10. All of my hair was still white as snow. Thankfully, the wrinkles on my face and my hands were disappearing day by day. Most importantly, I didn't have as many health issues. To start looking normal, all I had to do was to survive, because every morning I was waking up as someone younger and younger. Also, by this time, my friends had accepted me for who I was. So I was in a much better place emotionally, too. Sure, there were the occasional losers whose idea of having fun was making fun of me. At school, there was one group of boys who were obsessed with me. They would find a way to bother me every chance they got. For example, when I was chatting with someone, they'd come up and say what again? Speak louder, I can't hear you," mimicking an elderly person. Or they would mock me by pointing to the apple in front of me at the cafeteria and saying things like, "Do you have teeth? Can you eat that apple?" I wasn't saying anything back because all they wanted was for me to react. I decided there was no point in getting upset by them. After a while, when my friends began warning them, they finally knocked it off. Last year at school, something funny happened. A younger girl came up to me. First, she apologized for disturbing me. Then she said, "Our history teacher gave us homework about World War II. Where were you during the war? What do you remember? Can I interview you for my assignment?" You get it, right? The girl thought I was old for real. In the beginning, I thought she was making fun of me. But when I saw she was actually serious, I burst out laughing. You might have calculated from what I've told you so far that every 5 years, I get 10 years younger. That means I will look 40 when I am, in fact, 20. When I turn 25, I will look 30. And at 30, I will look like a 20-year-old young girl. Sounds pretty good so far. I can't wait for those days to arrive. But what's going to happen after? That's what really scares me. If it keeps going like this, when I'm 35, I'll look like a 15-year-old. At 40, I'll look 10. And at 45, I'll look like a 5-year-old kid. Everything will be reversed. I mean, my peers will start to shun me because I will look the same age as their kids. Of course, even though physically I will look like a kid, mentally I'll still be an adult. Maybe because of this, they will keep treating me normally, as they would a 40-year-old. It looks like I'll have really interesting problems in my life as I get older. For example, I want to go to medical school and become a doctor like my parents. Think about it. You make an appointment at the hospital. When you enter the room, you see an 8-year-old kid wearing a white lab coat. When I say to patients, "Hello, tell me what's bothering you," I don't think they'll start talking to me as if everything were normal. Now that I think about it, I guess being a doctor is not the best career choice for someone like me. Another issue I'll have in the future is related to having kids. Now just imagine for a moment that you are my child. Your mother looks like a little girl, although she talks and acts like a normal adult. How would you react to that? I can't even imagine it. Do you think my kid will take me seriously when I say, "Do your homework, finish your dinner," or "enough video games for today"? How will he handle my getting younger as he gets older? Will he like having a mom that looks the same age as him, or will it be bothering him? And the real question is what happens once I turn 50. According to the calculations, I will look like a baby when I am that age. In reality, we have no idea what's going to happen because nobody with my condition has ever lived that long. However, because I'm quite healthy, there's a good chance that I will live to 50. I wonder what will happen. I'm so curious. For example, will I lose my ability to walk because I will have the physical features of a baby? And also, since babies don't talk, will I have to learn how to talk all over again? There are hundreds of questions to which nobody knows the answers yet. I can only answer them by staying alive. There's actually a movie that talks about my condition, although it's old, so you might not have seen it. It's called The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Brad Pitt plays the main character. The protagonist of the movie is born as an older person and gets younger as time goes by, just like me. It's a wonderful movie. I highly recommend it. It might help you to better understand people who have my condition. But I didn't like the ending because once the guy, Brad Pitt, starts looking like a child, his mental age goes back to a child's level as well. He forgets everything he lived through, everything he learned. He even forgets how to write. He starts behaving just like a child. His friends end up treating him as a kid. But I think they wrote it this way simply for the script to make sense. I don't think in the future my mental capacity will go down to a child's level. If that had been the case, I would have started talking the day I was born. I think physically I will look like I'm 5, but mentally I'll be 45 or 50 years old. Of course, that's my assumption. What do you think could happen? Please write your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for listening to me. You can subscribe to this channel now if you want to be notified when new videos are uploaded. And if you like my story, please don't forget to like this video. Goodbye.
I'm Anna, and I'm 14. For the last 2 years, I've had quite a problem. I found my parents terribly embarrassing and tried to keep them away from my school and friends. Don't get me wrong, I always liked my parents and actually got along with them quite well. I had gotten used to them and their mannerisms, but they had just become embarrassing to me the older I got. My mother has been talking and laughing too loudly for as long as I can remember. She also did things that just made me uncomfortable. At the school festival at my last school, there was a karaoke stage that was for the students from the lowest grades. None of the kids really dared to start. My mother, of all people, had to go on stage and sing terribly loud and off-key to encourage them. I covered my ears and would have preferred to sink into the ground. At the same school festival, my father was late as usual. I thought he could have used a shave and a change of clothes. Besides, he was in desperate need of a haircut. To make matters worse, he got into a hot dog eating contest with Tim from my class, soaking himself from top to bottom. Even worse was the way he stuffed the hot dogs into his mouth with both hands. I felt terribly ashamed and was the first from our family to go home without saying goodbye to my friends. When they got home and realized how upset I was, they asked what was wrong with me. Everyone had been having a lot of fun after all, and why I had to take everything so terribly seriously. I would learn to see things in a more relaxed way. They just didn't understand how embarrassing such performances were for me. I was just glad that the summer vacations started after the school party. Fortunately, after the vacations and our move, I could go to a new school. So I took it upon myself that my parents would just not show up at the new school. I told them before school started that I was now old enough to handle my school things myself and that they should also not bring me to school or pick me up from there anymore. All right, they said. If that's what you want, we'll do it, as long as it goes well. If there are difficulties or if you change your mind, we can always change it again. Things went really well with my new class from the beginning. Soon my birthday was coming up and some of my new friends asked what we should do for my birthday. I told them I would think of something, thinking back to my 13th birthday when my parents were particularly embarrassing. Back then, when my friends and I came to our house after school to celebrate my birthday, my parents were dressed up as a fox and a chicken and shouted "Surprise!" loudly. Throughout the afternoon, my mom made noises like a chicken, and my dad made what he thought were fox barking noises. They even insisted on going to the movies with us in the costumes. My friends had fits of laughter while I was just embarrassed. Couldn't my parents just be normal or even a little boring like other parents? Another time, we took a friend of mine to an amusement park. My mother insisted on riding the carousel with everyone. With her screeching on the roller coaster, she drowned out everyone else present. Meanwhile, my father was waiting on a park bench because he gets sick on carousels. When we got back to him, he had fallen asleep snoring with his mouth open. I was so ashamed of my parents that I never met up with this friend at my house again. One night at dinner, my parents asked what I would like to do for my 14th birthday. I had been dreading this question, but I had a plan. This time, I said, I want to invite Grandpa. My parents were happy about this since my grandfather is our only relative. Until now, we had rarely seen him since he didn't live near us and always worked a lot. And how many girlfriends or even friends do you want to invite? My mother asked. With my girlfriends, I'm going out for ice cream and to the movies one day later without adults, I replied. My parents looked at each other and sighed. Yes, she's getting fledged. We'll just have to deal with that, was all my father said. My grandfather came to see us the day before my birthday. Since my parents still had to work and shop anyway, I stayed home with him. He said he was looking forward to meeting my friends tomorrow. That made me embarrassed, and I said, I'm not celebrating with them until the day after tomorrow without adults. He immediately realized something was wrong and said I probably didn't want to put an old man through my friends. No, you wouldn't be a problem at all, I said. Who then? He asked. I blushed and told him about my plan to keep my parents away from my friends and how embarrassing they often were. Grandpa started talking about the past for the first time. He had always dismissed that before, saying, "It's much more important to deal with the future. You can shape that while the past stays the way it was." He began, "When your mother was your age, she was a very shy girl. Your grandmother had died by the time your mother was 2 years old, so maybe that was the cause. Anyway, she was so shy that she never attended a ballet recital even though she loved ballet and had ballet lessons for many years. Her teachers also complained because she never participated in class. I could not help her. It was only when she met your father that she decided to overcome her shyness, mainly because she wanted to become a mother who exemplified confident, free behavior one day. Your father had been raised by an uncle who died when your father was only 17 years old. He was completely on his own until he met your mother. The two were inseparable from the beginning. Your father wanted nothing so much as a family, just like your mother. Since then, he's worked tirelessly to make sure you're all okay. Do you know he works 3 different jobs, slaving from dawn to dusk?" "Yeah, something like that," I said, embarrassed. "In the morning, he's out delivering packages of newspapers for the paper delivery people long before you wake up. Then he's back home for breakfast with you and dinner, too. During the day, he works as a plumber, and at night he does additional emergency work for several other plumbing companies." I felt terribly guilty and suddenly felt nothing but arrogant and heartless. "I didn't know all that, or only partly," I said, "and I feel terrible. But my grandpa told me that neither he nor my parents would want that. Their intention had always been to give me as carefree and beautiful life as possible. And I realized that that was exactly what I had, a carefree, untroubled childhood and youth in which my parents made everything possible for me that was in their power. I was suddenly proud of my parents and asked my grandfather not to tell them about our conversation. The next morning, I woke up and heard rumbling in the house. When I came downstairs, there was the most amazing racing bike I had ever seen with a huge red bow on it. "Happy birthday!" my parents shouted. I had wanted a racing bike so I wouldn't have to take the bus anymore, but I hadn't imagined it would be this great. I was overwhelmed. Immediately, I remembered that it had always been like this. My parents fulfilled my wishes and regularly exceeded my expectations. Grandpa gave me the matching bicycle helmet. He winked at me and looked at my parents with pride. When we sat together at the table in the afternoon, I said, "This is a wonderful birthday with great presents. But in the future, I don't want such great gifts. I want to learn to work out and fulfill wishes myself. I'm going to take a job or a vacation job and start saving for my next big wish." "But then what about our vacations?" my father asked. "We'll just do that every other year, and maybe only for a week. I'd rather you didn't work so much anymore, Pa." My mother then said, "Okay, if you grow up like this now, then I can work more again. I would like that." I was really sad when my grandpa drove away again. We had never been that close before, but we would see each other more often now. Before I went to sleep that night, I asked my parents if I could have a pajama party with my friends tomorrow after all and eat the rest of my huge birthday cake with them. They laughed and just said I'd better still call my girlfriends to ask their parents and pack their pajamas. I did that and fell asleep very happy afterwards. We had a lot of fun the next day. My parents went to the movies in the evening, and I danced with my girlfriends to our favorite music videos. When my parents came back and squealed as they danced along, I didn't feel embarrassed for a moment. Even when Sophie rolled her eyes, I just said, "I know they're a little crazy, but definitely the best." Things have changed since my birthday. My ma still talks and laughs a touch too loudly, but she has become more confident, and through her new job, it seems more natural. My father doesn't work so much anymore and has much more time for himself and also for us. But I have changed the most. I don't take everything so much for granted anymore, but I don't take it so seriously either. And I'm very, very proud of my parents. I now deliver newspapers twice a week. At the next school festival at my new school, we definitely want to set up a karaoke stage, and I swear I'll start it off with my parents and I won't be embarrassed.